This is Brother Ron, and welcome to We All Be News Radio and TV, the news-free Dixie for the 21st century.
We all be on the hill on the one and only Judge Joe Brown. Take his, he got so much to offer the world in terms of his thoughts about things. And I just want to hear his thoughts about what's going on in the news cycle right now. We can get started with this cultural phenomenon, this movie mint called Black Panther. Have you seen it, Judge?
I'm boycotting it until it gets on TV.
It probably on Fire Stick already, though.
Well, here's the deal. See, this is just like those black exploitation movies in the late 60s, in the early Superfly series. You put something out, you get a lot of black people going to see it, and that gets a big cash flow for the Hollywood industry. Black people come out of that, they don't have any authority, they don't have any power that goes around you can put on stuff that's meaningful to us. And look at the theme here. You have a superhero who's from not America, but he's from some mystical sci-fi fantasy version of Africa, and that's got nothing to do with getting us free. Now, if you see who's playing the part and you see some of the other parts you find him in, it could be confusing to a young guy as to exactly what this person is, so it blurs the line between what standard issue guys do, or men, and what those that, are all up in arms about their rights to do what they do. See, so they've had a concerted campaign to push a point for the last 50 years. So I'm looking at John Singleton, Spike Lee, they did some great work. But you see, they would trick them out, so they've got a great movie going on like Malcolm X. And everybody I asked to save their bloody ticket found out that the ticket said Beauty and the Beast, Walt Disney. So they said, well, they told us it didn't count. We could go into the movie. I said, no, but see, that's how they do the accounting. When they have ticket sales for Beauty and the Beast, the money goes to Walt Disney instead of Spike Lee. See, they did that. So it's not a cool thing what they do. And if you don't play that game with them, which is being a gay black male, and you are a straight black man, they'll ruin you. They will use you to bring in the cash flow, and then you start getting big, and then they'll cut you off because they don't want you to get big. So it's kind of crazy. I think outside of actors who read scripts, I think the only people that actually were straight black men in Hollywood, outside of those actors that read scripts, was Cosby, me, and Chappelle. And they tried to jack Chappelle around on the writing situation. So you get in, they build you up, you get the money, and then, oh my God, how are we going to kill this off?
Right.
So they do, so you don't get too big. They will do stuff where if the guy does scripts and he brings stuff in for them, they'll keep him going and keep him a lot, but he won't be the high paid man.
Right.
Even if he works more than anybody else. I was looking through the guide on Comcast, and I'm looking at all the Wesley Snipes films. I mean, if you look at it, hell, he does more work practically than anybody else out there, except maybe Morgan Freeman or Samuel Jackson. But you see, they have to go through all kinds of changes to do what they do. And somebody's writing the script. Now you get somebody that goes in and he's not doing the party line and he starts talking about manhood or correct behavior, it ain't gonna happen. Now, I predict this kid they've got doing the Daily Show,
Yeah,
Young
Trevor
South
Noah.
Africa,
Yeah.
they're going to rank him out soon enough. He's getting too big. But you see, he's not really talking about anything righteous. Damn near everything he does is a lame anti-Trump joke. But he's got wit, we think. But is it his own stand-up material? Does he write it, or is somebody writing it for him? So they do what they do, but they don't want you to really do what they do.
But does Hollywood have to acknowledge black buying power? Like, you look at the big hits of...
We have no buying power.
Okay. But what about the movies about like Girls Trip and
That's
Get
what
Out?
I'm talking about. You
Yeah.
have no buying power, because what happens is what they have you spend your money on causes dysfunction. So what you do by watching it, you're subtly brainwashed into doing less than what you ought to do, and your ideation is crazy. Boo 1, Boo 2, Medea. See, we pile in on that. Or you watch Michael Jackson, Returns, and what's in that stuff is absolute dysfunction, and it's bad for anybody, let alone us. But we pay our money, and we come up with parties where we pre-buy the tickets. Biggest ticket sales in the country were in Memphis, for
Right.
goodness sakes.
For Black Panther, yeah.
Yeah, that's absolutely ridiculous.
But why this is like a very black city, right? Does that make sense for it to be the biggest market for the movie?
Yes, it does, because black folk crave something about themselves. But did you see somebody doing a righteous thing about a political analysis? No. Did you see somebody doing a righteous thing about taking over a community to run it politically, run the drug dealers out? No. Did you see anybody talking about organization, voting rights, and all this other stuff? Did you see anybody preaching sense about some real issues? No. You got a fantasy situation. And see, unlike most of the rest of the Marvel stuff, where the character may be Thor, a god, or something like that, or Superman for DC, the bottom line is they wind up being effectively American, whatever they are, and they identify with the main culture. Did you see any black culture in there? No. I've seen some of the stuff they send out, the trailers, looked at it. But what it looks like to me is, instead of it's focusing on what are we going to do to organize our neighborhood or bring this together for our neighborhood, you got a character who comes from a fictional sci-fi version of Africa, and that's a dead end for us. He doesn't even sound like one of us. And then take a look at him playing the gay Egyptian god of wisdom in a movie which was an interesting sci-fi takeoff on the Egyptian pantheon. It's called Gods of Egypt.
Right.
So which one is this character? See, so young male sees one, sees the other. The lines are blurred, especially when he's brought into this before he knows what the realities are.
What about his portrayal of Thurgood Marshall? You don't think he did a good job in that Marshall movie?
That was okay, but he didn't look like Thurgood Marshall.
He said that much too, but he said what convinced him was that Thurgood Marshall's son wrote a letter to him, convincing him to play the role.
He played a good role there, but the bottom line is which one is the reality? You see, this is what they do when they plot it.
Right.
They do this thing where we don't want the kids to have an identification with a proper role and proper type of conduct. We want the same actor playing this, same actor playing that, and same actor playing this over there, so the kid doesn't know what's right. See, the truth of the matter is for the last 100 or so years, most of the young males in the world get their idea of what's appropriate masculine conduct from looking at the movies.
Right.
So you never saw Humphrey Bogart play that kind of role. You never saw his villain at the studio, A.L.L. Manju, playing those kind of roles. Everybody looked at Humphrey Bogart in A.L.L. Manju is real this. But you talk to black GIs from World War II, well, I don't know if there are any of them still left around. They talk about how they hated Hubert Humphrey and Adolph Monju because they brought them over there to talk to the English women about don't play around with the black soldiers. They're animals. They've got tails. So the English women knew what they were talking about, and they wanted to play with the tails. Right. But, you know, but they don't appreciate that. So, see, it's the ideation. And I remember my father saying, I don't want you seeing a Humphrey Bogart movie. Well, you know, everybody was talking about Humphrey Bogart, this, that, and the other. You know, he's the bad actor. No, you don't want to see that because of what he actually was about. See, so it's all this stuff in here. Or you get an actor who plays a priest, he plays a commando, he plays somebody that's homosexual, he plays somebody that's a villain. What is he? You see, it used to be that they all played certain type of characters, like, and then the projection. They used to have one in school, elementary school. They'd say, you think you're big and bad like Alan Ladd, but you're little and puny like Mickey Rooney. Well, Alan Ladd always played the sheriff or the quick gun in a Western movie. But Alan Ladd wasn't but 5'3" tall, and they always put him on a box to make him taller, and Mickey Rooney was 5'6". You know, I met him.
But Mickey Rooney getting all the women too.
I met him. He's a nice guy.
Right, but he was getting a lot of ladies though. I mean, I didn't know he was.
Yeah, but he was 5'6". At the time he came along, 5'6" was normal height for a guy.
Right.
See, they just had him as a child star, so when he was small, they just kept that persona for him. I mean,
he was actually taller than Alan Ladd.
Yeah, Alan Ladd was 5'3".
He played Shane or something like that.
Yeah, all of that. And Mickey Rooney
I thought he was 6 feet tall, man.
No, and Mickey, they put him on a box. I looked at some film courses out at UCLA, and I said, no joke. And see, I met Mickey Rooney. He's 5'6". He doesn't look short when he's in person.
Right.
And a nice guy. Or like in a movie, see, they usually size the cast by the leading male role. Now you get Sidney Poitier, that man's 6'5".
He is? I didn't know he was that tall.
Man, he looks like he could play basketball.
I didn't know Sidney Poitier was that tall.
Yeah, man, he's a big dude, man. Damn, man.
I thought he was at least 6 feet tall or something like that. But
no, 6'5"? Yeah, man, that's a big dude.
Wow, I didn't know. Wow.
See, and you get to looking at that, or like Stallone. He's supposed to be macho, this, that, and the other, but I don't think he's much over. I think he's about 5'9". I met him.
I thought he was 6 feet tall.
No, Arnold Schwarzenegger's 5'11".
I thought he was like maybe 6'3".
No.
You serious?
Serious.
Oh, wow.
See, that's what they do with the image.
De Niro's short too, though. Pacino, they short. Is Pacino?
Now, Al Pacino is a nice guy. He's about 5'8", 5 something.
He was wearing heels though, right? He wears special shoes.
Well, no, I'd say he's about 5'9".
Okay.
Maybe 5'10", but he's all right guy. You can talk to him.
Also, you just see him walking, he'll talk to you. He won't be pretentious.
I met these people at Paramount functions. Shatner, he was too full of himself.
I think he killed his wife, but that's another story. I mean, he leave for the weekend and come back home. She floated in the swimming pool. He didn't even go to Leonard Nimoy's or whatever his name, Mr. Spock funeral, right? Cause he had a golf tournament or something.
Leonard Nimoy.
Yeah.
Nimoy came across as an all right guy. See, the persona that they have. Who's the guy that played in, what is it? He played the international hitman for the CIA.
George Clooney?
No, not Clooney. Bourne Connection.
Oh, yeah. I know you're talking about Matt Damon.
Matt Damon. I met Matt Damon when they did a movie here about 20 years ago.
I know you're talking about John Grisham movies, The Rainmaker.
Yeah,
like that.
Rainmaker. I was an extra in that, and advisor on the technical details. Hell, tell you how they did it. You know, they didn't even have a script. They had me reading the book.
Really?
Just what's next? Oh well, Mickey Rooney's not Mickey Rooney.
Matt Damon?
Not Damon.
Dude from the Quaker Oaks?
No, the short guy that plays the Eminem thing now.
Oh yeah, I know you're talking about Danny DeVito.
Danny DeVito's character. He goes up, blah blah blah, and he's talking to the old lady. She almost trips and falls. Okay, so they sit there and do that. And one actor, you know, quite frankly, he did 37 takes of a variable line. It wasn't even in a script. It was just dialogue along these lines, ad-lib. So they had to put an IFB in, wait till he came back from lunch and fortified himself so he could get the simple lines down.
Wow.
That they were feeding him through a
37
earpiece.
takes though?
37 takes.
That's crazy. But it's like Matt Damon makes some pretty decent movies. Like he's more consistent to me than Ben Affleck.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Did you see Liberace?
That's with Michael Douglas playing Liberace, right?
Yes.
I seen a little bit of it. What's your take on it?
Now, is Liberace played by a straight actor playing a gay part, or a gay actor who plays a lot of macho parts?
Well, he said he got mouth cancer from eating too much, kitty cat. That's what Michael Douglas said.
Yeah, well, he's another snotty one.
Okay, what about Rock Hudson then? He played some macho role, like giant and stuff like that.
I know, and guess what? What he was.
Yeah, he was gay.
Yeah,
but he was macho. He was like a macho hetero, like giant. You know.
Yeah, I remember the movies. I saw him when they were original. I got drug in to look at them. But I'd say this: I don't know what Douglas's thing is, but I know he was one of those standoffish, not too friendly types.
What about his father? His father said like he was approachable. Always like I don't know.
Yeah, I never met his father. Mm-hmm. He wouldn't even. Michael Douglas wouldn't even remember him. It was at a Paramount function to celebrate their 80th or 90th anniversary or something. It was an outdoor amphitheater. Whoopi Goldberg is nice people.
Yeah, she's very talented.
Samuel Jackson is all right, brother. I sit next to him on a plane. Morgan Freeman strikes me as all right. Interesting.
What about the allegation Quincy Jones made about Marlon Brando? Does it change your perception of who he is?
No. As a matter of fact, what happened is I had this beautiful girlfriend that I was engaged to 1970-71, and her stepmother had dated Marlon Brando. So we'd go over to her parents' house, that is her father's house, stepmother there. He used to be a big guy, and he wound up having to do a little penitentiary time because somebody told him that would be the healthy thing to do. But Brando stayed on good terms with everybody, and I can remember being over there, and he came by with a case of wine and a bunch of other stuff. Spent the weekend. I heard him say out of his mouth that he went that way.
Wow.
Kind of hard looking at The Godfather after you heard the man playing the
roles. Did it change your perception of him in his iconic movie roles?
Well, I'd already heard that before the movie came out. So I was like, oh yeah, okay. But, that's their right to do that. It's just kids these days don't know what they're doing. And see, you talk to some people and they say, I like this opportunity to get these kids straight, or to put this message out about courage and bravery, and then you get this type that goes, oh my God, TR gave me my break. I did not know who I was until I played this part, and I finally found myself. This is who I am. You're like, damn fool, what the hell's wrong with you? Just think about it. Somebody who seeks a career in make-believe.
Right.
And the whole industry is in make-believe. And the whole industry has an agenda.
Right. So it's so sad to see, like, a lot of us want to know that we want Wakanda to be so real. Like, black folks get lost in fantasy. We can't deal with our realities. It's so bad for us. Or is it?
That car commercial where they've got him running and then he jumps off a bridge and lands in the driver's seat. My king. Like, come on. What connection do any of us have with that nonsense? You know, I much prefer, say, Morgan Freeman's new thing where he's dealing with a soft drink, the ice, you know, and he sits there and he's cool, you know, he takes a swallow and the ice forms and he blows the fire out, you know.
Right.
Now, that's okay. He's got on a suit, he's sitting up in an easy chair in front of a fireplace. Good imagery.
But is it hard to get like good black hetero male images in popular culture to be taken serious?
We'll take it if you just give it to them, but you see, the bottom line is what they get fed.
All right.
I like to, when I go see a movie, I'll go see it 2 or 3 times, and I'll go see it when there is a more mature audience and everybody's quiet, and then I'll watch it when you've got idiots in the audience and they're all giggling and laughing at stuff that's not funny, and then you see it with a black audience and they're getting loud, unruly, and, you know, behaving in an ill fashion. So it is what it is.
Now, speaking of, like, I guess, hetero types, you think about what's going on in Florida with the mass shooting. I know you talked about it tonight. Your thoughts about Sheriff Israel and his deputies? He kind of remind me of Barney Fife on meth or something. I don't know.
You know what I saw? When I saw some of the video they had, I saw that school officer was just an outright coward for doing what he did. He had the grace to resign. Those other 4 who are hiding behind the car until they hear the gunshot stop, that's just inexcusable. And that is a classic example of what's wrong with man training these days. See, they're told it's okay instead of being courageous heroes and going in there. There was one coach in there that got killed for being a hero.
Right.
And somebody that was ROTC, a young Asian guy, he was trying to help people out of the door and he got killed. He got a recommendation on another 2 ROTC cadets. They got acknowledged by the Defense Department. That's what you're supposed to do. But here you are, have adult, grown, trained deputies wearing weapons and they're hiding.
Right.
See, that's what it's all about.
So what would you recommend to the sheriff? What should he do now? Or what should they do to the sheriff?
He should get a psychological evaluation done on his 4 deputies who stayed out there. He should terminate them for cowardice and dereliction of duty. That's your job description. You get certain authority that other people don't get, but that's just like classic definition of being a man. If you're a man, you're expected to stand and deliver, or charge and deliver, or you got to put yourself between harm's way and women and children or kids, you know. It just wasn't done.
What about his behavior in particular, like how he's been acting in the news and stuff?
I don't watch that nonsense. It's all hype, PR stuff to get the best spin on a bad situation.
So what is your take on them people trying to boycott the NRA? They losing all these corporate sponsorships.
I'm gonna send them a big check.
Okay.
See, we need to understand that there's a commonality of interest, and sometimes you must do coalition stuff. Our problem with guns is not stuff the NRA deals with. It's what comes in with the drugs, the same drugs that the long-standing failed war on drugs won't stop. The drugs come in with a shipment of serious military hardware. So we're running around talking about buying stuff of machine guns at a gun show, which doesn't happen. That's just propaganda and hype from the pacifist about this, that, and the other. And sometimes the background checks work. For example, I had to, some years ago, help out a retired school principal who had something happen where she was staying with her mother, 40, 50 years ago.
Wow.
So, you know, she got denied, but she has no criminal record, but they picked that up. I had problems myself. I'd go down and there was some clown I actually put in jail that was using my name, and they wanted to come out and arrest me for being an escaped convict, you know.
Wow.
And I said, oh, hey, ho. And somebody said, you know who that is, don't you? No, that's the man that locked the person up that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, see, so they pick it up. I've seen people try to go through an appeal process. I suggest what happens is that in various locations, the process breaks down because the people who are running it are not being vigilant. Mm-hmm. Now, some people wanted to take me up on this, but you saw me put it on a Twitter site, at Judge Joe Brown TV. And what it was is, since you're so concerned about young people getting a rifle, well, maybe under 25 you might consider if they've got expulsions or disciplinary records at school. Mm-hmm. And look into that and see what's going on. Now, the interesting thing is that, as I said in there, this rifle is a design by Eugene Stoner that he patented in 1952. It has a unique status in American history. It is the longest serving military rifle in American military history. Mm-hmm. Now, if you go back to the beginning of this country, civilians always had access to the latest military rifle or something better. Mm-hmm. The Army was using muzzle-loading single shots, and civilians could get lever actions, or the troops could if they bought it themselves. Mm-hmm. You know, you went to single-shot Springfields on the frontier, but civilians could get that and ammunition. They went to the 1892 Craig Jorgensen, the first bolt action. Civilians bought that up. Then they went to the 1903 Springfield, and that became the thing for the civilian market to sporterize those things. Mm-hmm. And then there are untold thousands of M1 carbines and M1 Garand rifles, and nobody says anything about a much more powerful 30 caliber M14 that is freely available. But they get worried about assault rifle, which is completely not the case, because one, real assault rifle is by definition a machine gun that when you don't want it to be a machine gun, you can switch to semi-auto. It's not the other way around. The other thing is there's a big thing going on even in the military right now, because basically the caliber is only a 22 caliber, and they classify that in most states as only fit to hunt varmints. You know, groundhogs, squirrels, and rabbits. Mm-hmm. A lot of states, it's illegal to shoot a deer with one.
Wow.
And if you really wanted to do some damage, I can think of two ways that could have done a lot more hell, and that is a standard 18-inch barrel, 12-gauge pump shotgun. Mm-hmm. You can wreak all kinds of havoc with that. The other thing is if you don't want to go that way, you can play Timothy McVeigh and go down to your local lawn care or Lowe's or whatever your local hardware supply is, and buy yourself 25 to 200 pounds worth of ammonium nitrate, the country's most popular fertilizer. You know what else they use it for?
Well,
is a high explosive filling for artillery shells. So it's all out on the net how to sensitize that. So Timothy McVeigh took down 250 some people when he blew up the courthouse down there in Oklahoma City. Mm-hmm. So nobody says anything about that. So what are you going to do about somebody who's disposed with that? If you can't get the rifle,
right,
you go get that. They had somebody kill 27 people in Tokyo a couple, 3 or 4 years ago with a sword. They had somebody else go off in China with a knife and killed 18, 19 school children. Mm-hmm. So it's not the fact that there is a weapon available, it's a tool, but what about the tool users? What's in his head? So you can come to some places and the leftist press goes all tut-tut, oh my God, how awful. You've got these children with AK-47s, hand grenades, and magazines, and a ceremonial knife stuck down in the front of their belts. Well, they're all going to school like that. Nobody's killing each other. What's the difference? It's the character, not the weapon.
Right.
More people get killed by claw hammers every year than they do with so-called semi-auto rifles. You talk about this bump fire thing, that takes a lot of practice to make it work, but they've got a guy named Mikulik who is an exhibition shooter for Smith & Wesson. He takes a 120-year-old revolver and he can fire it faster than a submachine gun can go. He can fire 8 shots on target in less than a second with a revolver. I've seen somebody take a single action 150-year-old peacemaker, or at least the design is, and rip off 5 shots in a little more than a second and a quarter. What are you going to do about him? I have some close and personal acquaintances. You'd be better off if they shot you, because if they do that other thing they do, you're very likely to be dead if they want you to be.
Right.
See, let's start working on getting away from excuses for a failure of the child-rearing paradigm and the masculine paradigm that they've been trying to set up. It doesn't work. It takes a lot of effort to turn a boy into a man. There's a limited pool of boys to turn into men, and when you sit there and you prevent them from being pulled into manhood, what you wind up is just like those deputies. They don't protect, they don't have duty, honor, obligation, courage, and bravery.
Right.
You got a bad deal.
But yeah, these I ain't gonna say them per se in particular, but you got people who do hide behind badges and guns and terrorize citizens and civilians. They know they don't have guns or weapons.
Yeah, but that goes and puts that thing to a lie. Let police protect you. You know, you saw 5 law enforcement officers cowardly leave those kids to their fate. And by the way, as that sheriff has said, their training says you don't wait on an active shooter in the school, you go in immediately. So they waited. They didn't even abide by their training.
So even Donald Trump had it right. I mean, Donald Trump said he would have went in without no guns.
Yeah, and some people inside did. They just punked out. They took an oath to protect and serve. They didn't protect. They just punks carrying a badge. But see, in my 40 years of dealing with this system, I have found out there's a very bad thing that we're getting more of these days.
Okay.
That's the type of individual that has no personal presence, no personal charisma, and everybody jumps him or ignores him or her. And what happens is they seek offices like judge, prosecutor, cop, or something like that, where they get cloaked with the authority of the office to make up for their own lack. And that type of person is trying to prove to themselves something that is not good. Quite often, it's, I'm being a cop, I'm being a prosecutor, I'm being big bad, you know, I'm a criminal court judge, and I'm hard-nosed and cutting nobody any slack and don't understand mercy and justice. So my thing is, they'll have to respect me, but the other thing is they're trying to prove to themselves by occupying that role that what's going to happen is really his fan. I'm sure I'll be brave. I know I'll be brave. I'm a cop. I'm brave.
Right.
But then they punk out like you saw. And I call it what it is. They punked out.
Ain't no way to get around it, but they want to blame the NRA.
Yeah, NRA. You saw what the real problem was, lack of manhood.
Right. Right, and also I got to ask you,
wait a minute, what that devil could have been done if you had an armed teacher? And look, right over here in Arkansas, not long ago, they were about to have one of those incidents. Somebody came into a school and the boy's vice principal got his .45 out of the glove compartment, ran back in, caught the dude, subdued him. Down here in Mississippi, the same thing has happened. It's happening a lot, but you don't hear about it because why? Somebody who was a man, knew how to take care of business, practiced and got good in some of these manly arts of self-defense, and he used it for the defense of others, and he acted like a brave, courageous man, and he stopped an incident. See, you're always going to have crazy people, but there's nothing you can do to protect yourself from them except protect yourself. I can tell you off of the many homicide cases that I have handled as a trial lawyer or as a judge, there's nothing you can do. There's nothing the police can do to keep you from being murdered. The only person that can save you is yourself. All the police can do is draw a white chalk outline around your body. And I found, actually, except for the psychos, an armed person is a more polite, stable, and adjusted person, and is also someone who is likely to act with mannerability and be circumspect in what he does.
Yeah, because when you pull that gun out, you mean business, or you should.
Well, you're supposed to not pull it until you absolutely need it.
Yeah.
But the example is the most polite societies are regularly armed societies, even from the mythological Western thing. Partner, is there something that I can do for you here?
Right.
You know, in other words, you're polite, or Lord Bullington, have you achieved satisfaction, sir? You see, you get out of line and there's going to be bloodshed. So people have manners. Okay, samurai. Oh, you know.
I mean, they had a code then, you said.
Yes.
We don't have codes, or we don't know them well.
See, for the last 50 or so years, going back almost 100, this thing about gun control is interesting. Invariably, if you trace it back, what you will find is that, one, in places like New York, they did not want the Irish to be armed.
Right.
And after the Civil War, they most definitely didn't want former slaves to be armed, so they started passing all of these gun control laws that were only applied to black folk in other unpopular categories. So it is what it is. And then there's a more important thing that is inherent in the Second Amendment. It's a deterrence to tyranny. Serious business. The whole U.S. governmental structure is set up on checks and balances. You have a judiciary, a legislative body, and an executive. You've got state, you've got local, you've got federal. And they form a check and balance on each other. And a lot of stuff that looks strange is based on what happened with the Civil War. The states don't like it, they might rebel and start a civil war. So they had a check, a balance to what they thought was tyrannical exercise of power. But as long as you've got an armed population, you have a check in that the citizens can match to an extent what the government's supposed to do. The Second Amendment actually guarantees, the way it's been interpreted over the last long time by the Supreme Court and other courts, is that the right to possess arms referred to military arms.
Right.
So that you could be a militia. What's a militia? It's your duty as part of the militia to come to the common defense. That's an ancient English principle. It was the duty of the archer, the yeoman, to be proficient with the longbow. Under English and American law, when you have a duty, it also becomes a right. So if you had a duty as a man to be willing to stand on a frontier or a hostile situation or a disaster to defend the collective, then you had a right to possess those things that you needed to do that. But now they got a cockamamie idea about all these are just supposed to be National Guard types. That's not what it is.
Right.
It's like most people have forgotten this. Let's say there's something really going on. The sheriff can say, you, and you. I'm deputizing you. Come along. So we just have this namby-poo idea about somehow or another when you have insane ways of raising children these days where you take the masculine thing out of the equation, it'll all go away if they don't have any method to express violence. Well, you can take martial arts, and I know some people that are very good at killing folk with no weapons at all. I can do a little damage that way too myself. It wasn't so damn old and getting decrepit, but you know, the bottom line is what it is.
Right. I gotta ask you this too as well. I mean, you're a Californian, and you know, I know you sent me something from Twitter about Stacey Dash, the clueless star running for Congress.
That is absolutely.
And she's trying to represent Watson. I mean, South Central. Or
well,
South
let
LA.
me tell you about it. That's
Okay.
that I want to be, because I think if I want to be, I ought to be, and I should get it if I just wish it. But see, it includes Compton, Compton, and North Long Beach, and she's running as a Republican. Now, how absolutely stupid and ridiculous is that? What gives her the idea, the presumption, that she's qualified for that position? Oh, I guess she meets the technical ones, but what do you know? What dues have you paid? What experience do you bring to the table to represent your constituents in an effective way? Or do you just have a single issue that you got the hots for? Because you don't like Trump. Being something for a negative reason is not a good reason to be that something.
So she doesn't agree with Trump, you saying? Even though she's
No, she doesn't like what's going on, that hashtag Me Too thing. You know, the parties need to be brought back around, so that et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You know, women need to be protected from this. Well, goodness gracious, okay. When women had a right to expect to be protected, they got it, but then they got upset because that's chauvinism to think that women needed protection.
Right.
You have about 4 billion years worth of evolution to make sure there's a thing called sexual attraction, and when it goes on, everybody's upset because it happens, because you got a driving engine in those who don't like heterosexual attraction anyway. And then the other bottom line thing is hey, where exactly are you supposed to meet somebody these days? You can't meet them on the job. You can meet them at church. They might be a wacko. No telling what kind of screwball you run into in a bar. And that's why they've got all these dating sites to hook people up. I guess if you met somebody on a dating site, here it is. And then I hear this thing, just because a woman's trying to be sexy doesn't mean anyone has a right to exploit it. No, it doesn't. But an analogy to that is, it's perfectly legal to have American currency in your pocket, but you'd be a damn fool walking down in the middle of a hood someplace and flashing a bankroll. They'll hijack you.
Right.
So you have a perfectly legal right to do something, but there's what you call the exercise of common sense. Birds and the bees, you know, from day one, you don't expect it to stop just because you don't like the opposite sex, and you think no one should like the opposite sex, but then no people get here. And I've had a lot of grown women say, I would never ever reveal something that happened 35 years ago, because, you know, it's happened. But bottom line is some of them say, I was badly offended, and some of them say, I was flattered. Right. It all depends.
But what if Harvey Weinstein looked like Brad Pitt or George Clooney? Would he have some of these problems he having? Because it's like, some of this stuff was really consensual, but they regret it, like you said.
No, they were short on talent, so they decided to start a career that depended on talent by sex.
Right.
But apparently they weren't too good at that, or they couldn't pick anybody out. And you know something, too, about this hashtag Me Too thing. For every woman who says she was coerced because she always wanted to be something,
right,
there are many that says go straight to hell.
Right.
Not me.
Right.
So that's like, you know, and I'm looking at it. So your life's ambition is to be in this make-believe tinsel world, and you were willing to sacrifice your dignity for that? What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Now, I've done some acting on these promos. I was told I was good at it, but I had a big problem.
What was that?
You feel like a damn fool doing it. It's like, God. And the worst is if they do something on the scene. I remember they did something downtown Chicago when this first show first got it off. It was down there where the canal is and all these buildings, and they had traffic blocked off, and my line was something like, I like Chicago. Chicago is a tough town, a Judge Joe Brown town. Everybody's looking, I feel like a damn fool.
Wow.
That still bothers me.
Oh, yeah. Is it available? Is it online, this promo?
Well, this was for the show 20 years ago when
Okay.
it first started. We talking about 1998. And they were shooting stuff, you know, before the show first aired. But I'm just talking about, that was my first exposure to that. Now, I found out I could act, but the way I learned to act was translating what the devil went on in a courtroom for a jury when you were a trial lawyer, and you would put emphasis, you would keep it entertaining so they paid attention to your case while they went to sleep on the dull guy.
Okay.
So you would be able to act and portray. So what are we looking at? Let me give you an imitation of what you were looking at. What does this mean? And you'd act out, you know, imitate something that's, yeah, I've run into that myself. So now you got a picture in their mind for the argument. You've just advanced your case. But some of these people, some of the things they do, honestly, I've seen it work. And the first few times I really saw it work, it took me a while to look at a movie.
Wow.
I just, oh man, God, that's awful. I can just imagine that.
Wow.
And you see, you're dealing with people whose life ambition, life career is taking fiction and trying to convince you it's real. And the whole industry, because they have become very good at that, can take anything practically and convince over a long enough period of time with a studied propaganda campaign that something is real.
Right.
And that is something you ought to go for. So it's,
Wow.
read a book. And I'll tell you this, it is the information age, but we tend to take the devices and treat it as though it's the advanced gossip age.
Yeah.
But most of what you see on the media as news, they're getting their feed in from the exact same sources you can get, so you can get the raw data and analyze it yourself without listening to some airhead bobblehead pontificating about a subject he has no clue about because some 23-year-old wrote the copy and it's scrolling on a special one-way, two-way screen in front of the camera lens so he can read it. Acting like he knows something about it, and the first time he saw it was when he sat down at the news desk on camera.
Right.
You see, it's
a big Hollywood production. I mean,
yeah, and it's entertainment.
Wow. It's like you said, bread and circuses.
Bread and circuses. And we had a thing, the way our government was set up is there's freedom of the press under the First Amendment guarantee so that the press can inform the citizens. They can editorialize, but they're supposed to give you objective reporting and then follow with editorialization.
Right.
But over the years that's become obsolete, so the so-called reporting just becomes editorialization masquerading as reporting, where invariably they've got an agenda that they're trying to push.
Right.
I don't particularly like what Trump's doing, but I think it's good for the country for it to be able to see this sham that we have been taking as news. And it's like, my goodness, come on now. It is so transparent that whether or not objectively he's done something, you hate the guy so much that you are trying to use what is supposedly objective news reporting to push a slate.
Right.
And they used to have a rule that the Republican Party changed years ago called fairness.
Right.
If you badmouth one guy, then he had the right to reply to it. So the networks tended to stay neutral. If you push some guy, the other opponent had the opportunity to give a contrary presentation.
Right.
Now they took the rule away, so they just run with it. This is our game plan to spread our personal agenda or collective agenda.
Yeah, that's why I don't look at news now. It's too much Trump thing. Like, is it trying to get people an emotional response instead of trying to provide some objective perspective on the situation. And people hate Trump for no reason. I can't hate a man that only been in the White House this a year and some change. You've been on the earth longer than that. How can you say that he's responsible for the way your life is going?
Oh, and then, yeah, if I want to get mad, I look at the general incompetence of Barack Obama. I look at the sham of that grinning-faced imp, George W. Bush, and I look at that scoundrel that they made a saint, Saint Ron, who was probably one of the most divisive and destructive charlatans we've had in, and we're still suffering from a whole lot of things that his administration kicked off from owing the People's Republic of China trillions of dollars that his administration borrowed when he put that tax plan of his in, or that his administration did, that didn't do anything about generating wealth, it just redistributed it. Looking at that low-down scoundrel Ricky Trick, I am not a crook Nixon. You know, hey. Or Saint Woodrow Wilson's the son of a bitch that sat there and segregated on executive order Washington, D.C. He was a Virginian Southerner, a Democrat, back when being a Democrat meant that you were a Klansman practically.
Right.
Talking about saving the world for democracy. Meanwhile, the Negroes in America, they need to be oppressed because they're subhuman. They set up World War II practically by trying to treat the Japanese as subhuman.
Wow.
Almost got their butts whipped and did a time or two.
Well, it actually did, because, I mean, like, the times are changing. The passing of somebody like Billy Graham, I mean, he's a throwback to some interesting times. Sometimes you mentioned. What are your thoughts about the passing of Billy Graham?
I have nothing to say favorable or unfavorable. I just think that it did nothing for the race problem in America, and it intensified it because it gave some racist bigots an ecclesiastical justification for what they did. And I think it detracted a great deal from what we needed to pay attention to and set up this right-wing, far-right neocon bias to a particular worldview. And that's not good. The country was set up by people who understand the dangers inherent in trying to make the republic a religious entity. As a matter of fact, I find it telling that so many people who know nothing about what they're talking, or know nothing of what they are talking about, say America was a Christian country. It's interesting, the first treaty ratified by the U.S. Senate way back when was in response to a French treaty that said France, being a good Catholic Christian country, hereby agrees with another Christian country, etc., etc., etc. So the Senate ratified it with a clause that says our august friends, the French, are to understood these United States are not a Christian country. We have no respecter of religion that we apply. You see, so where did that come from, you know?
Wow.
Talk about separation of church and state. How did Thomas Jefferson go there? Well, guess what? He was one of the drafters of the Constitution. I guess he knew what he intended when he wrote it.
Right.
He wrote that provision, and he knew the dangers. So you see, people have enough things to make them passionate, so it's a bad thing when you do things to unnecessarily inflame the passion. Now, those are the things that you need to worry about rather than somebody's got a gun. They have more guns in America than they have people. So some of these guns have been in circulation for 5, 10, 15, 25, 50, 100 years. And great-granddaddy bought it and it's been in the sock drawer at grandmama's. And you get it, and nobody knows where it is. Up until maybe, let's say 35 years ago, when Kennedy got assassinated, people didn't need any background checks. They could mail order guns and get them sent in. There were tens of thousands of firearms that were of a military grade that went out in circulation. So you can't find them.
All right.
As a matter of fact, a lot of states have a proviso. You can't even register a firearm. You just get a background check, but the state is not allowed to collect records on who owns what. Because why? You got a big brother problem. And I find it interesting to look at some police magazines, and they've got these editorials and discussions going on about would you enforce order to go confiscate firearms from citizens. And they've got a big, vigorous back and forth about, no, we wouldn't do that. Look what they did down in New Orleans. The people needed protection, but they were worrying about black folk getting out of hand. So after Katrina, they went around and they got blanket search and seizure things going, and they just went in and started looking for firearms when people had a right. And that's a crisis where you might need one. See, it's just crazy.
Well, like the thing with gun control remind me of the war on drugs. Like, how can you have a war with yourself when the system supplies it? Like, they produce the drugs, or they allow certain people to flood certain markets with drugs.
Let me tell you about that. Yeah. See, there's a game being run. In the name of fighting terrorism now, it used to be fighting communism. There's always been a black market in military arms, real live assault rifles, real live, fully auto AK-47s and U.S. military stuff.
Right.
But how it gets fed is Israel captured a lot of this stuff in the Arab-Israeli wars in the 60s, early 70s. They've got stockpiles of the stuff. So in the name of fighting terrorism and intelligence gathering, the U.S. turns a blind eye to Israel sending in opiates along with these military rifles, the Russian type, along with the drug shipments. From South America, they've got a trade in cocaine, and they turned a blind eye to the cocaine trade. The Reagan administration was deep into the drug thing to supposedly finance the people that would stand against the commies. And what happens is you get a lot of cocaine brought in with the shipments of serious U.S. military hardware for real that's being smuggled back in here with the cocaine.
Right.
Out of South Korea, you've got an indigenous industry now. It's run by a company or a firm known as Daewoo, and all of the hardware that the U.S. government, full auto weapons and all sorts of things that went over to South Korea are now coming back in here, since they supposedly need the cash flow to finance their own rearmament, so that comes in with the opiates. And then you've got a big trade coming out of the Middle East with the opiates and the seized Kalashnikov designs that you get from what's going on in the Middle East. So the government turns a blind eye to it, and even if they didn't, they can't stop the drugs. They haven't been able to stop the drugs. The traffic has gone up. The flow is heavy. The same thing with the weapons. So you're running around here worrying about the NRA, and the real problem is the U.S. Department of Defense, the U.S. State Department, and how some of these idiots are letting these very dangerous items, the real deal, get brought back in here so we can sustain our supposed allies and doing what they do supposedly as stand-ins for us.
Right.
So, I mean, it's all kind of ridiculous. I used to go down here, and when I was on the bench, I always issued regular orders saying that the law enforcement had to keep the protocols on the records of all seized weapons.
Right.
I'd say out of every 100 weapons seized, most of them coming from where somebody got stopped for a DUI or a domestic thing, and they did a search incident to arrest, most of that stuff is rusted out junk. Where you have a 6-shot revolver, 2 cylinders are rusted out, and there are 2 live rounds that have been in there for 25, 30, 40, 50 years. Or some stuff that's half broke that was stolen. There are some full auto serious weapons that get into circulation because a law enforcement agency may order some legitimately, and the factory or the distributor is shipping them by truck. The truck gets hijacked, and then you've got all of those now in distribution, brand new, still in the Cosmoline, and it's serious stuff. They can't stop that either. Memphis Police Department backed up the FBI in a real dumb stunt about 20 years ago. These bozos had a SUV full of real machine guns, and they parked it with all of this hardware in front of a motel where they decided to stop. So the van got broken into, this whole load of full auto equipment went into the underworld circulation, and some good Memphis black detectives used their connection to gather up every one of them within 48 hours. But you see, that's another thing. A whole lot of guns used in crime are left because the cops taking a dump on the toilet in the public toilet, and he didn't realize he left his gun on the floor. Or he left it on the dashboard of the squad car, or not squad car, his personal car, because he was going to put it in his overcoat, and he didn't lock the door, or somebody broke in. There it is, it's laying up on the seat. And talking about defending yourself, I'm not going to say who it is, but there was an occasion or two where I wound up, as a result of this, keeping some loaded magazines of the right type in my desk drawer in my chambers, because there was a deputy who was prone to forget to load his weapon and come in with an empty weapon in his holster. Like, hey man, come see me. What's the matter? Check your weapon. Just feel it. Oh man, damn, Judge.
What the hell you do with it? Empty? I mean, like...
Yeah, like you were in there security. Come on, I got you 3 magazines. I just kept 5 magazines of the right kind.
I'd be scared to give the guy.
Yeah, well, I mean, but you know, that's the reality.
Irresponsible like that.
That's reality.
Wow. Well, Judge, I want to thank you so much for all this wisdom and insight. You gave, in an hour time, you gave people the most news they need to hear within a week's time that they won't get.
Thank you. But let me just put it this way. There are no shortcuts. If you train a dog, you train a horse, you train a child, you have to go through the steps that have been established as working for that purpose. We don't want to do it anymore. I don't know why. We don't feel like it, except perhaps we got propagandized by some people with an agenda. That makes us abdicate our responsibility as parents and as a general society to raise up the next generation in an appropriate fashion.
That's right.
That's what I think the problem is.
Well, I hope we'll find a solution with all the information you're putting out here, and hopefully inspire people to be a part of that solution. So we want to thank you once again. In the words of Great Cousin, we love you madly. Keep on producing and pushing.
Yeah. All right, brother.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.